Here we go. Yes, yes, yes. Another week, another wealth webinar. What's up, TikTok? What's up, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook? We got some interesting stuff today we're going to talk about. Number one, as you can see, I am now what you would call aging. I have readers. That's a big development in the news. Well, my news. But what's actually more funny is that futures are up 126 right now in light of a lot of really bad news that came out. However, the news that's hitting the headlines today is Mr. Jerome Powell is going to be announcing whether or not they're raising rates or keeping them. Now, there's only a 1% chance by the experts, if you will, that they're going to raise rates and they'll probably hold them. However, there's a lot of underlying reasons why they could raise rates. The whole market's on their knees waiting. And I'm going to start today off with one of the things that came in my economic report. It says, on Fed Day, remember the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That is all so important because we want to hope that Jerome Powell and those that make these decisions are remembering that prayer. With that being said, we will be right back after this. All right, welcome back. It's another week. That means it's another wealth webinar coming up at 1 o'clock Eastern this afternoon. Stumbling on my words, but we're here for What the F Happened. We'll get more into what we're going to be talking about on wealth webinar, but I think the important things we talk about is what has been happening in the news. You know, one of the things with this show that Stephen and I have been doing is throughout the week, we capture little news articles that are so important, and then they're just gone after they come out. And a lot of times I just can't understand, Stephen, why like some of the most important pieces of news are kind of just brushed under the rug. What do you have to say about that? And what are some of the things that came out in the news this week that we thought for sure were going to, be detrimental to the markets and everything else? But yeah, here we are. Markets futures are up again on hope and optimism. And Mr. Catch shows up late as always.
Yeah, man. I mean, we could definitely kind of get into that a little bit, a little deeper into some of these stories, but the 24-hour news cycle really is just unbelievable. I mean, something comes out that you would think would be headline news for the next month just because of the potential impacts and what it could actually, what it could cause to happen within the economy and our lives. And then within 6 hours later, an F-35 stealth jet goes missing, and all of a sudden that's at the top of the news cycle, and we don't hear anything else about the $33 trillion in debt line we just crossed, or the $7.6 trillion in interest payments that are coming due in the next 12 months, and all this other financial news. And so, of course, today is the big news is what is the Federal Reserve going to do, and what's that going to do to interest rates? But guess what's going to happen, Chris? We're going to get the announcement, and it's going to be gone by 7 p.m. this evening. So, and sometimes I think it doesn't even matter, but I like to think that this is Jerome Powell right now sitting in his office. What do I do? What do I do? Do I raise the hikes and create a banking crisis? Do I keep things and just allow inflation to continue to soar? So we'll see what he does. But this inflation is not getting better. It's getting worse, as we saw by last week's data coming out. So what's he going to do today, Chris? What's he going to do?
I don't know. Ocean 888 coming in from YouTube thinks he's going to raise them 15 bips. The economist and the powers that be, or the media, I guess is what I like to call that. They're saying there's only a 1% chance that they're going to raise rates. Cash, what do you think, Lazy Cash? You think they're going to raise rates today? He doesn't have anything to say. Anyway. But I'll let all of you kind of just watch the news as it unfolds. But, the funniest thing is, and we've been talking about this over and over again, and as I stare at this number sitting on the screen, it just really makes me it just makes you think really long and hard at why do the markets keep going up. Now, I understand that $5.2 trillion is a lot. The most unprecedented money printing period of time ever in our history has happened from 2008 to current. So I like to think, of that kind of like when if you go out, when you were younger, you go out and you party really hard and you just drink and drink and drink, and you just keep going. I mean, eventually, I think I've never been there, thank God, but eventually I think you black out. But then like what happens next is you wake up with a hangover. But there are, and I do remember, Stephen, you probably have some friends like this. They could just drink all night long and they've never had hangovers. Like, I feel like the markets right now are that guy or gal that you partied with way back in the high school days that just never had a hangover. But then you got to ask yourself, was that person an alcoholic already? Or was that person, did they know something we don't know? Like, were they drinking egg yolks, to avoid it? I don't know, but I feel like that's the markets. There is no reason we should be testing the highs. Matter of fact, if I may, I've got an economic report as of September 19th. And this is something we talk about a lot, folks. And any of you that want to comment on this, I mean, if you follow Ray Dalio did an awesome video, one that I think everybody should watch, called How the Economic Machine Works. And he talks about, in that video, he talks about the three things that weigh into an economy and an economic cycle and everything else. So when he talks about the economic machine, he talks about the single most important thing. And if you study Austrian economics, I know this is boring stuff, but you would understand that productivity is the number one thing that an economy should grow or fall on. And productivity is very simple to understand. We don't have to get all technical with this. Like, you get up every morning, you go produce a good or service. That good or service then produces a profit when sold or traded or exchanged. And then the money that you get back, if it costs you $1 to make a widget, you sell it for $2, you got $2. But it was your effort, your time, your energy that allowed that to work. Now, that is called productivity. Not hard to understand that, right? We work harder, there's more productivity. We work less, there's less productivity. During the pandemic, everything stopped, so productivity really slowed. But then everybody went back to work and productivity increased. And in a strong economy, productivity is going up at a faster pace, right? Because more people are working. And if you look at the unemployment numbers, they're very low. So just based on pure logic, wouldn't that mean that productivity should be really high? It would, right? More people working, more people producing, more goods and services being, put into the system. That's a strong economy. The wheels keep rolling. Well, this should wake all of you up when you read about this. So the economy is so confused by unprecedented 14 years of stimulus that the most that we've ever had, and then it goes on to talk about productivity. And it talks about, let's see, I'm trying to figure out not to read the whole thing, but he's talking about the recessions and how they should not be fought because they're natural. Like they absolutely are essential to ridding the economy of inefficiencies, bad investments, and excess capacity. I got to put the glasses on. There we go. Oh my goodness gracious. Wow, I can read it again. All right. So then it goes on to talk about productivity. And what you're seeing right now, and this is the first time we've seen this, is you're seeing productivity on a decline. I mean, there's the chart. I know it's going to be hard to see for all of you because it's small, but this, if you kind of look over here, see where the productivity is actually going down? Trying to show everybody here that can see it. I don't know if you can actually see that with light, but this is the first time this has happened. Matter of fact, the present drop in productivity since late 2021 has been more pronounced than any other drop before it says before 1973 to 1974. And he said the first serious recession after World War II. So he's just going on and talking about the different spending waves. But essentially, not to get too deep into this economic report, productivity growth is slowing. But yet it doesn't seem like that. I was out at a restaurant yesterday. We went out for tacos, and the restaurant was packed. So I'm like looking around, and I know the cost of everything's gone up, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, sometimes you got to just ask yourself, how do people afford to go out and and spend what they do. But it always comes back to like, look at what's going on with debts. And when you watch people paying at the terminal, because that's all it is, just a terminal now. You don't even talk to people. You just put your order in the terminal, hate it, and and then you pick it up. That's it. But you put your little piece of plastic in the machine, and that little piece of plastic, that's what charges. Now, some of you pay off all your credit cards every single month, like I do. Okay, because I hate paying interest to somebody else. The only interest I ever want to pay is back to myself, my private banking system, which we will be talking about today on the Wealth webinar, and that will be at 1 p.m. And we'll also show you how you can put your money to work in a completely alternative asset class that is secured and probably one of the safest bets you can do based on how you do it. So if you want to learn more about that, join us by going to chrisnaugle.com. Register for the Wealth webinar. We'll give you my 3 books for free, the ebooks that is, and you can join us. But Stephen, I guess what is your take on this whole productivity drop? And then I know we had a really freaking cool video about those plastic things I was talking about that we call credit cards, which really is the reason why we will more than likely see a digital currency inside the next couple of years. FedNow's already launched. It was kind of very silent in July, but they launched FedNow. That was the testing grounds for what will soon be a completely digital transacted economy. Now, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. Do you have a mic on, Chris? It's kind of bouncing around. It's really loud.
That's probably because of this.
It's weird. It's never happened before. It just started happening a second ago. But no, I mean, on productivity, I mean, it's definitely an interesting topic. The Union Auto Workers of America, the unions for the car industry, the auto industry. So they're all on strike right now. It's the largest strike against the 3, main American car manufacturers in the country. And so they're on strike right now. And, this just started on Friday. And it's I think the impact's going to be pretty bad, but it's kind of interesting to see what some of their demands are and kind of what they are looking to accomplish. I mean, one of the demands that are in this union auto workers strike right now are moving the workers to a 32-hour work week. So 8 hours a day, 4 days a week. And part of their reasoning behind that is they say that because AI and machines and robots and everything are taking over people's jobs, that they're going to have to figure out a way for these people to work less to allow these machines to do their thing or something of that nature. It's a very interesting kind of argument to try and slide this 32-hour work week in there. But to me, we've grown up our entire lives with a 40-hour work week, and then people like you and I, Chris, laugh at a 40-hour work week because we end up putting in a lot more time. And if there's any entrepreneurs watching this, which I know most of you are, and investors, or people that have had maybe 9 to 5 type 40-hour work week jobs, but you understand the importance of getting ahead. So you work your 40-hour job, and then you work another 10, 20, 30 hours in the evenings and weekends to put yourself and your family in a better position. I mean, that's always been the American dream. That's always been, the harder you work in life, the more you're going to have and the more you'll be able to accomplish. And it's what I built my entire life around. It's what, Chris, you've built your entire life around, what the people we surround ourselves believe in. And so, just to kind of watch some of this on the other side, want everything given to them. They want to work less. They want to make more. I just saw this week, McDonald's in California, their minimum wage at McDonald's is starting at $20 an hour now, which is mind blowing. It's everybody wants more for less, but without the understanding that impacts everything, from everything else. What a lot of people don't realize is when taxes, for example, are increased on big businesses and costs are increased because of all these other things that are going on in the economy and policy that's being set, all of that gets passed down to the consumer and paying higher prices. So when you pay higher prices, of course, you want more money, and it creates this snowball effect. And we're seeing it in real life right now. I mean, inflation's been wild the last 2 years, which was a direct result of pumping trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of printed money into the economies, people not working, being told, don't worry about it, we're going to take care of you. And this is the end result. And it's not going to end well, no matter what anybody on TV is telling you right now. this soft landing is just not going to happen. And if it does, it's going to happen, and people are going to get comfortable for about 2 seconds, and the crash is going to take everybody out because they're going to let their guard down. So you hate to see it, but it's it all boils down to just kind of the ways of the times. I mean, your guy, Chris, I never had a chance to meet him, but Stephen Arnio, right? He wrote that book, and
hard times creates, hard times create strong men.
Yeah, exactly.
Holy cow. Yeah, you got me up on that one. Hard times.
It's the whole thing, hard time. Well, hard times. Wait.
Hard times. So go back to the world wars. Those were hard times. They created, a generation of strong men and women. And my cat the reason my mic went out is my cat hit the mic here and it knocked it all out of whack, but stop hitting it. Anyway, that's the life of having a cat. But
hard times create strong men. And I mean, so he was talking about that years and years ago. I mean, we've been watching it happen. And so, back, just kind of where we opened up with the 24-hour news cycle, and this stuff just gets completely brought to the top and then pushed right down 2 seconds later. So it's definitely hard to keep up, and it's just interesting times that we live in right now. And then you start to see things that are happening in the economy that, I mean, like we talked about with $33 trillion in debt. I mean, I'll pull that up just to kind of see what that looks like. But for the first time in history, we've crossed the $33 trillion debt mark. And to put that in perspective, just in the last 3 months, we've added over $1 trillion. So 3 months ago, we had just crossed 32 trillion. We were talking about it on this show. And 3 months later, now we're over 33 trillion. So a rise of debt that quick is scary to put it any. I mean, I'm not a fear mongering type person, but it's wild to think about it. And you see the real implications of that. I mean, debt rising at this pace is going to make the U.S. interest expense problem even worse. So you can kind of see how, federal government expenditure interest payments, what that looks like. And now starting in 2020, because of all the printing and what we've had to do with interest rates to try and control that inflation because of all that printing, it's just created, I mean, look at that, Chris. I mean, doubled what our interest payments are.
Dude, it's insane. It's just insane.
Worse and worse and worse every single day. So this is not a sustainable model, just so you guys know.
Not at all. I want to hit a couple comments because we got some really good comments that just came in. So over here on TikTok, somebody, let's see, I got to give them a call out. It's Daniel Middle 590 on TikTok said, strong men have cats. Yes.
I like it.
Best comment on TikTok today. And then somebody else, which I really agree with this, said the one cause of inflation is inflation of the money supply, which is absolutely in the full power of the Fed. I mean, the Fed controls money supply. So the Fed absolutely created inflation this time. And they always do. It's the inflation of money supply, which, as I just mentioned from that economic report, since 2008, there's been more money printing, more money supply, because it's the same thing. If you print money, you're increasing the money supply. And when you raise interest rates and unwind the balance sheet, you're constricting supply. However, this is an interesting thing. And if any of you have been watching this show for a while, you will know that we were talking a lot about the Fed's actions to combat inflation. One of them was unwinding the balance sheet. Stop eating the mic. All right, kitty problems, real world problems. But unwinding the balance sheet, which basically means as treasury bonds mature, they roll those treasury bonds off the balance sheet. They let them just mature and they don't rebuy. But that is shifted. They only did that for a few months. I can't remember how much they totally let roll off. They're starting it again. But when the whole bank thing happened, when banks started to fail, they started it up again and they started buying back more bonds. So it's just, you can see the central bankers are literally, and I hate to use this word, trying to play God. They are trying to prevent a recession. Yeah, here you go. Exactly what they're doing. Stephen put, just for TikTok and for Instagram, Stephen put up a kind of cartoon, and it's basically a raging fire on a house. Two firemen, which they look old and like they don't know what they're doing. Does that sound familiar to the central bankers? Literally putting gasoline. They're pumping gasoline on the fire, thinking they're trying to put it out. It says central bankers putting out a fire. That's exactly what they're doing. They keep printing more money, keep increasing the money supply to try to combat inflation, and inflation isn't going down. Now, I got another comment that came in from Instagram, and this is a really off-putting one that I don't fully understand, but it's Messenger Brian 725 said, you believe in working for the other guy and stuffing their corporate pockets. I don't quite know how to respond to that one, but listen, like whether you're W-2 or you're 1099, which what I mean for those, that don't understand that, whether you work for somebody else or whether you work for yourself and you're solving other people's problems, it all comes down to what is it you're passionate about. And if you're working in a job that you don't love, that you don't like, why are you doing it? And if any of your answers is, oh, because I have to, fuck you. You don't have to do anything you want. You do that because you put yourself in that situation. You went out there and racked up your credit card, bought that new car, bought that big screen TV, bought all the shit you didn't need. And that's why you think you have to work. So shame on you. And I don't mean to put it that way. This isn't about the rich and the poor. This is about people making terrible financial decisions, not understanding how money works, giving up control of their money, and buying shit they don't need to make themselves happy. And happiness is not found in material items. So you want a lesson? Like, stop putting yourself in situations and then stop freaking blaming people. We live in a society right now. This is my rant for the day, if anyone hasn't figured it out. We live in a freaking society where everybody wants to blame somebody else. Everybody, back during the pandemic, you wanted to blame everybody else. Blame China, blame the wet market, then blame unvaxxed, then blame the vaxxed. It's just like, it's a divided country. You know where that leads? Civil fucking war. I'm going to owe the freaking swear jar a lot of money today. But I mean, stop with the bullshit. Like, if you don't like your job, get in a job you do like. If you don't like any jobs working for somebody else, then go out there, create your own company and solve somebody's real world problems. And then you will understand how it is to be a business owner. People that make comments like that have never owned a business, have never gone out there and tried to run a business. They just want to blame corporations for the greed. Now, is there greed in big corporate profits? Absolutely. Is that the reason you are living the life you are, or not living the life you are, or not living the life you want to? Absolutely not. You are in control of your destiny. And by comments like that, I know that person is conforming to somebody else's ideologies and somebody else's failed reality. Start creating your own ideas. Start creating your own life. Start creating something and stop blaming everything.
Yeah, guarantee you they're broke and a loser too. So,
I mean, it just pisses me off, man.
Here's the thing though, Chris. Like, that comment is so it's so ignorant, because think about the alternative. So if you don't have corporate free markets and corporations, then what's the alternative? Well, that alternative,
socialism. That's the alternative, or communism.
Well, it's government-controlled companies and control of everything. And so let's see what that looks like. So where does all the money go in other countries like that? Straight to the top. I mean, even in the United States of America, where that should not happen, there's so much corruption in the federal government and the state governments. Just look at people like Joe Biden that are worth tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, making a couple $100,000 a year as public servants.
That's only recently though, man. He never had that kind of wealth.
Look. I mean, but I'm just saying, like, look at people like Gavin Newsom. This guy makes $210,000 a year. Look at how his net worth, he's grown up to a $42 million net worth. Gavin Newsom. I wonder how his net worth doubled during this time span. What happened? Oh, COVID, when he shut everything down and made everybody pay him to do everything they wanted. I mean, this guy makes millions and millions of dollars a year lobbying for the people that he's supposed to be representing. Like, it's just against the people he's supposed to be representing. It's all just so dirty. And so would you rather have that? Like, it's where you have no chance in life. So you're clearly watching the wrong show, buddy.
Yeah. And I'm going to go to one more, because this will really, what is that thing? Remember the Family Guy episode? He had his own like TV station, Light Your Fire, or this will really, you remember that one? Anyone remember that? Can I get a comment? What was that one Family Guy where he did it and it just, this will light your fire, or like, it was just to piss people off. So here's one for you, Stephen. So we got a comment from TikTok, Randy Jordan. The person speaking, maybe speaking about me or you, is saying the same rhetoric that has been proven wrong over and over and over. So working hard has been proven wrong over and over and over again, right? So we should just work less. We should just expect everybody to give us everything. We should just let the government control everything. In other words, what you're saying, we should just convert to communism, correct? Because I think, sorry, but I think that's what you're trying to say. And I got some news for you. And listen, maybe I'm taking some of these things out of context, but it's okay. I'm just making a point. And I know that one comment. I think I know who that person is. And I don't think that's what he was referencing. I think he was just maybe said it wrong and started the rant, but that's okay. And because he knows he's probably didn't mean that. Grind my gears. That's what it was. This really grinds my gears. That's what it was. But if you don't like capitalism, if you don't like freedoms that are provided through the Constitution and everything that we've had, that we've lost so many men and women, so many service people we've lost for protecting those freedoms, I got some news. Fucking move. Go live in Russia. Go to war for Russia. Do what you got to do. But if you don't like capitalism, why are you still here? Oh, it's TikTok. They're probably not. They're probably in. Where are you at? Randy, where do you live? You don't live in the United States, right? Because if you did live here, you'd understand that that's what this country is. It's capitalism. It's free markets. It's all the things that we have used to basically become the leading nation in the world. And it all comes back to capitalism. My wife was just calling me, Stephen. I might have to take this call because she never calls me during WTF.
Go ahead if you want to call her back real fast.
Well, I'm going to lose the feed, which is already kind of being weird.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just to kind of sum up, I mean, this is not my opinion. So Ronald Reagan said this in 1986 at a press conference. He said the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." And if you just live by those words and understand what that truly means, I think you'll have a much better life. The government's not here to save you. They're not here to really care about you. Everybody's in it for greed these days. There's some good ones out there, but overall, it's a tough situation. I mean, if you think that they're competent, I mean, look what just happened this week. We lost a $100 million stealth F-35 fighter jet. Just vanished. Something malfunctioned. The pilot ejected, and the jet was set on autopilot and just kept on going. And it was a stealth bomber. So guess what? They couldn't track it. They couldn't find it. They lost it on radar. They said the transponder went out in it. How that happens. And this was anywhere from $100 to $150 million jet, depending where you get the valuation. So as of yesterday, they hadn't found it. I was posting in my real estate Facebook groups up in South Carolina, hey, if anybody found this thing, like, I'll partner with, let's turn it into an Airbnb or something, because I don't know what happened. What if that thing lands on your land, Chris? Is it yours? So I'll take it. I mean,
I got to figure. I mean, just one little piece of that thing's worth an awful lot. But I think I think just the opposite. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think if it lands in your yard, it's your property.
Well, how about this? I mean, this was just a couple months ago. Pentagon says accounting error. Oh, just a little accounting area provides an extra $6.2 billion in Ukraine military aid. Just they happen to just miss a little dot there.
They just messed up some numbers. Stephen, come on, give them credit, dude. I mean, they moved a zero around. They forgot the decimal point. I mean, 6.2 billion.
So yeah, buddy. So don't work hard. Don't worry about it. The government, they'll take care of you. You're all good, buddy. You're all good. Okay.
Yeah.
Just leave it at that.
An Electric Ghost over here on TikTok said, "Free market isn't so free. Wealth creates wealth, mostly generational." I kind of agree with that. Like, the free market has never been free. It comes on the hard work. It comes on the backs of all the men and women who put hard work in to get where they are. And then when they get it, they don't want to give it back. So they find ways to protect their wealth and pass it on to generation through different strategies like trust structures and things like that live beyond you. But there's so many people that live their lives only focused on what they want. They want to take, right? I made a comment a long time ago. I don't know if I'll remember it, but life isn't about what you take. It's about what you give, and you'll be remembered the day you die by what you gave, not what you took. I might have got that wrong a little bit, but and I think that goes into what Electric Ghost is saying. Free market isn't free. We have to give a lot. But when we get to a certain level of wealth, we also don't want to give it back. And how do you give it back? Well, inflation is a robber of wealth. Taxes are a robber of wealth. And most people don't even understand the tax code. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert, but I definitely work with professionals, and we have professionals in our organization that understand the tax code, and everything's in the tax code. The tax code was written to benefit the wealthy. Joe Biden, okay, and I don't mean to use that name on here, but Joe Biden said, wealthy Americans should pay their fair share. But, people read that, oh, it's the wealthy people that are a problem. Should pay their fair share. Okay, how do you define fair share? I mean, you can look at Judge Leonard Hand and what his statement was. There's 2 tax systems in the United States tax code, those for the informed, those for the uninformed. So the informed people that understand the tax code understand what fair share means. So if you need $80,000 to live your lifestyle, okay, if you need 80 grand to live the lifestyle you want, let's just call that your fair share. But if you made $500,000 that year, but you only needed 80 of it to live the lifestyle, is 500 your fair share, or is the 80,000 you use to live your lifestyle your fair share? I'll leave that up to all of you to answer. The right answer, according to the IRS code, like the tax code and the IRS, is your fair share is what you need to live on. Now, there's a lot more to that. I just did a YouTube video explaining this, so all of you can watch it when it posts, but your fair share can be whatever you want it to be. Your fair share can be the 80 grand, even if you made $1.5 million. However, you got to give the rest away, okay? You can't own the rest. Now, that scares most people when I say you can't own the rest, right? Well, I don't want to give money away, but what if you got to, let me go one layer deeper. What if you got to fully control all of that money? You paid your fair share on the 80,000 and you had to give the rest away, which means you couldn't own the rest, but you got to control it for the rest of your life. And then you got to control it even after you died and into the future for as long as you want it to be. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Own nothing, but control everything, as the Rockefeller said. If you understand that, you are way further ahead than the majority of the people living in this country, and you fully understand the tax code, because that is how it works. So watch the video if you guys don't, but many of you are just going to sit there and be like, oh, that's not true. That's corporate greed. Oh, that's the wealthy are always taking. Why is it that Warren Buffett pays less in taxes than his assistant? Because he knows how to pay his fair share, and he doesn't have to own anything. Remember, he gave almost his entire net worth away to Bill Gates. But if you understood how that worked, you'd understand he still controlled all that money and still probably does today. But yet he gave it all away to get the Gates Foundation, in the effort of doing good for the world. I don't think you should have gave it to the Gates Foundation, but that's a whole nother WTF. But I'm just trying to get you to understand, because some of these comments are ridiculous and they just show a lack of knowledge. There's 2 tax systems. Those, the tax system, or there's the informed and the uninformed, and both of them are legal. Which one are you and which one do you want to be? Do you want to be informed or uninformed? Because the majority of these comments that are coming in say that you're uninformed and you're just blaming other people for the things you don't have or the life you're living. And that is 100% on you. 100%. Now, I know unforeseen and unfortunate things happen. They happen to all of us. Life isn't fair, but they are your problems. If they happened in your life, they are your problems. Dr. Phil, I read a book back when I was young, and kind of funny. I was in a really tough time. I was in a blame game time. This was back in the early 2000s. Life was just serving me a really hard, bad hand. And I read a Dr. Phil book, and the whole book was that preface. Your problems, they're your problems. They're not somebody else's to deal with. No matter how they happened, somebody did you wrong, that's your problem. Fix it. When you take control of your problems and you deal with your problems in your life all of a sudden just starts to make more sense, because I know life isn't fair. And if we just accept that life isn't fair and it never will be, but you own that and you then do whatever is necessary to overcome that, you'll live a much better life and a much more prosperous life. You can take that to the bank.
Yeah.
Sorry, Stephen, my little rant.
No, I mean, and all that leads over into life and leads it into business and leads it into leadership. I mean, I'm listening to a book on my runs right now, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Mm-hmm. And it's what it all talks about. Just, he was a Navy. There you go. So he was a Navy SEAL and led the SEALs and SEAL teams and trained new SEALs, and really good book just about leadership and how when you do take responsibility, how much of a difference that does I just messed up the zoom on my camera. How much difference that does make. But Chris, I gotta just to kind of sum up this segment here. I got a 32-second video.
Heck yeah, man! I love this video. You guys are gonna love this. Hold on, let me.
You don't know this video.
This is a different one.
Right. This is just to kind of bring it home for any of the kids out there that want everything given to them in this entire soft generation that is being raised right now. This is for you guys. All right.
Hang on, let me try. I'm trying to show this to. It's gonna be backwards for them, but I'm trying to get Instagram and TikTok. Hopefully,
and this is by a self-made man that's worth $500 million, $500 million that made it through hard work and grinding, not through corruption and political bullshit. So this is for everybody else out there that thinks that's what's all.
I tell young people now all the time, I definitely tell my kids, if you are even fucking remotely a savage, you'll run these people over. This next generation, and I know that every generation thinks the generation after them is soft.
Yeah, they're savages in every generation.
Right now, yeah, if you are even remotely a savage, you will run over every one of these kids in this next generation. It's easy to sit around and fucking cry about everything.
Yeah.
Get out there and get what you want. It's all out there for the taking right now.
Yeah. How do you develop the savage?
I think you have it or you don't. You're born with it or you tell you.
There you go.
I hate to agree with that. You either have it or you don't. But unfortunately, like from what I've seen and the people that I've worked with, and even the people, like within our own organization, I truly believe that. I had this discussion yesterday with one of our consultants. I truly think you either have it or you don't. You've either developed it in your lifestyle or you haven't. And unfortunately, he's spot on, man. And I think about that a lot when I think about my daughter. My daughter's only 3, but like, think of the world right now. Think of just this country. Let's just focus on the country. How much opportunity, Stephen, is there just in what we do? This tiny little thing that we do, how much opportunity is there? More than we can even fathom. More than we can even understand. And what does it take to have that opportunity in your life? Have it turn into whatever you want. I mean, and whatever you want can be whatever you want, whatever your dreams are, whatever's on your vision board. It's so easy because we live in very easy times, which has created very weak people. This generation is weak. You can see it. Like, I'm not going to throw every millennial or even, like the generations after, but look at 16-year-olds like in that, like, and I've seen this, I've witnessed this firsthand. We have an exchange student living with us, and not so much her, but like she talks about this, like this generation we're in right now, they're weak. Like they're easily upset. They can't handle criticism. They can't handle like constructive criticism. They can't handle being told to do something or that they're wrong. They don't want to do anything but stare at their phones. Like so think about like the generation we have. Now, just imagine if there was one kid, your kid, folks, my kid for sure, Stephen's kid for sure, but like your kid had it because they got it from you. And they, as he said, they were a savage and they went out there. And savage doesn't mean you take or you bully or anything like that. You just know what you want. You're going to create whatever it is you want to create. And you have the confidence to know you can do it no matter what anyone tells you. Imagine a kid that had just those traits. What would they be able to accomplish in today's world? The answer is very simple. Any fucking thing they want. That's the answer. And I hate to say it with the swear word in there. I'll add to the swear jar again. It was worth it. This is probably the easiest time in history for someone to get ahead. It literally might be one of the easiest times. Forget about inflation and taxes and all that stuff. This might be the easiest time in all of history in this country to get ahead, to create wealth, to have the life you want. And all you got to do is do what everybody else is unwilling to do. If everybody else rolls out of bed at 7, get up at 5. And go and conquer the world. If everybody punches out at 5, stay till 8 and conquer conquer your world. I'm not going to say the world, but conquer your world. Because remember, I mentioned in the serenity prayer, which all of you probably know, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. How much power is in that? Think about that. That's incredibly powerful. That sums it up. That sums it all up right there. Your kids need to have that. Your kids are, I know they're either born or with it or without it, but I don't truly believe they're born with or without it. I think all children are born with it. And I think society, parenting, and all the shit that schools are throwing down at our kids, that is stripping that from them. Now that's just my opinion, but that really grinds my gears. Thanks for the thing you guys put up. Oh, somebody said, gotta shit, BRB, I have explosive diarrhea. Exactly my point. That person doesn't have it. So I know we've kind of gone off the topic of
well, on that, Chris, though, something that's curious, is, or not curious, but something that it makes you think, right now, the immigration challenges, especially on the southern border of this country, are record levels. I mean, just in the last 5 days, there's been over 45,000 encounters of, immigrants and migrants coming into the country, either trying to do so legally or majority illegally. And, we're starting to see this in New York City, where the New York City mayor is coming out saying this is unsustainable. You have to stop allowing these people coming to our city. You're seeing this in Chicago. You're seeing it in Detroit. You're seeing some of these northern cities because they're completely overrun, the border states down in Arizona and Texas, and they're moving them north and they don't know what to do. And with those kinds of numbers, record numbers, we've never seen so many people coming into the country. It's, into the millions over the last 2 to 3 years now. They're all coming here to work, presumably for jobs, the majority of them, and so how does that affect the young kids that want everything given to them, that don't want to go out there to work, that won't even work at McDonald's for less than $20 an hour, when you have other people that have fled the worst conditions ever to come into this country that probably would work for $5 an hour in air conditioning? I mean, and so what does that look like over time? How's that going to affect everything that's going on? Just something that you kind of hear about that I don't know the answers to, and that's outside of my scope, but I mean, something to think about. It's got to affect the overall economy and country at some point, though, right?
Listen, I'll put it this way. So when me and Larissa were flipping a lot of houses, finding good contractors is difficult. And, doing, I don't know, 263 of them, one of the things I learned probably too late is, we found a couple contracting companies, and you guys can take this for what it's worth, but they were immigrants. Okay. So the one crew was all Russian and Ukrainians, all of them. Most of them didn't even speak English. But I will tell you something. When they got a job, they showed up every single day. They worked beyond long. They didn't punch out at 5. They were there till the job got done. They just got it done. And they did the things that I had never seen any other, I don't mean to poo-poo on American contractors, because some of them are very good, but I watched the way they worked together. And, then I remember I know the owner of the company really well, and he's also Russian. He's been here most of his life, very religious. I call him a kid, but he's in his late 20s. And I just said to him, I said, so how much do you pay these guys? And he told me how much he paid them. And I said, and they work like that? It was less than I'd heard any contractor making. But think of the alternative. They just came from, some of these folks, during the Russia-Ukrainian war, they came over here and they were hired. Now they're skilled laborers, they're skilled tradesmen. And they were used to, I think in Ukraine, I think some of them only make $2 an hour, and they come here and they're making, $17-18 an hour. Do you know what kind of raise is that? Let's just say you worked a job, folks, and you got paid $2. And that was good in your country. You made $2 an hour. And then you come over here and you get hired on a crew and you make $17 an hour. What would that be like? And some of you are like, yeah, but things are cheaper there than they are here. No. Just what would that be like mentally? Wouldn't that be like you're rich? Wouldn't you feel like I'm going to work as hard as I can because that guy, the foreman on the crew, is making $25 an hour? That's a massive raise. But you see, Americans, and I don't mean to pigeonhole, but we literally have created this ourselves. Some of them, they don't want to get out of bed to go work at McDonald's for less than $25 an hour. And they have zero work history, zero trade skills. They literally are just entering the workforce. I'm not working less than $25 an hour. Shit, I worked on a farm when I was a kid for $3.50 an hour, and I thought it was the greatest thing ever. But you know who I worked with on the farm? Mexicans, immigrants. They didn't even speak English. I was like, no hablo español. Sorry, senor. You know, but they outworked me. I couldn't keep up with these guys. And what were they making an hour? $5 an hour? Like it's all relative, right? It's all perspective of how we look at things. So, Stephen, you know, I know we got an immigration issue, like with the borders and everything. And I think really the immigration issue is more so that we're just letting anybody over, it seems, like bad people. You know, I know there's lots of crime and everything else, but immigration is actually probably not a bad thing if you really look at the fundamental of, like, you're bringing people here to do jobs most Americans don't want to do anyway. And many of them go on to become multi-millionaires. Like, Stephen, I bet you if we went through all the Fortune 100 companies and we looked at all of the CEOs and the founders of those companies, how many of them do you think would be immigrants that were not born in America?
I would say a lot.
I think a lot.
That's a great question. I don't know. But
because they understand the opportunity that the greatest country in the world provides. And they understand the freedoms that we have. The problem here are people like some of these comments that come in, people that live here, that were born here, that expect things to be handed to them. They have forgotten what this country was built on. But the immigrants that are coming over here, they haven't. They see this as the biggest opportunity of their life, and they're not going to mess it up. That's my take on that.
Absolutely.
But in other news, Walmart opens a pet center and a veterinarian care and grooming as they signal bigger ambitions. Great. That's what's in the news, folks. You want me to talk about the news in Walmart and how they've now got a pet center? Or do you want to talk about real shit that really changes your life, that can really get you ahead? It's your pick. Stop watching the news. That's my advice to you. Start looking at where the markets are. We're at all-time highs, and just start realizing if you don't get out and take your gains off the table, you won't have any soon. That's your choice. That's on you. But many of you will do nothing. You're like, many of you will listen to your advisor who just says, oh, keep putting money in. We're not going to have a recession. The markets aren't going to go down. And then when they do, you're going to blame everybody else. You're going to blame the advisor. You're going to blame Wall Street. You're going to blame the administration that you voted for. You're going to blame everything because life just dealt you a hard or bad hand, right? Sick, dude. You know why we'll end up like in trouble in this country? Because of exactly what we just talked about. Oh, yeah, I just saw this today. Full U.S. government shutdown likely. Interesting.
How often do I feel like we hear this like every 3 to 6 months.
It's freaking crazy, dude. It's just insanity.
End
It
of the
really
month.
is. You know, I see all your comments. I'm sorry I'm not answering them or calling some of them out. I know I'm usually really good about it, but I don't really know what more to say, and I just don't got a dog in the fight on some of this stuff. I mean, we all have opinions, you know, but yeah, Stephen, it's just like another government shutdown. I almost feel like that's fake news. I almost like, is the government really going to shut down? Really? Or are they just going to increase the debt ceiling and print more money and run us bigger deficits and push the surplus from what are we at now? 130% of GDP. Maybe why not go to 150? I mean, why, if we hit 150, why not go to 180? I mean, what's the difference, right? We can just print more money. Well, the leaders of this country, including the central bankers, should really, really take a history lesson back to Rome and the Chinese dynasties and all the things Ray Dalio talks about. And really just realize like what they're doing is what crashed and destroyed those greatest empires in the world back in their time. And that is really hard for me to swallow. And that grinds my gears.
Yeah, sometimes you got to fight against a little bit. Sometimes you got to be a rebel. I mean, how many of you on here right now kind of like this picture?
That looks like Tom Penny.
You got all the don't do it signs, and the guy's got every single one of them right now in the picture. Sometimes you just got to be a rebel, man. You got to go against the nonsense. Like, why can't I be on my phone and drink a wine and smoke a cigarette and eat some food right here?
Yeah.
2 birds up. I love it. But
cool. Now, Nick over here coming in from YouTube, he's got a lot of comments. Stephen, have you been following any of Nick's or the G3 one? I'm trying to catch up on all these comments that came in as we kind of get to the end here. Rick Proctor's always got really good things to say. Let's see.
Sounds like Genghis Khan's hustling, trying to just provide a life for their family. A lot of people really getting into infinite banking. Had somebody asking about IULs.
Here's a good book. Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, if you're trying to learn about that or becoming your own banker. So it's interesting. Can I hit IULs for a second, Stephen?
Yeah, man.
So there's a guy on Instagram. His name's Dustin. He's a great guy. He does whole life and IUL, and like he was commenting negatively against some of my posts on Instagram, because I speak negatively about IULs and Index Universal Life because I understand them. Remember, there's the informed and the uninformed. I promise you, anybody that wants to challenge me, I'm the informed. So be really careful before you challenge me in my knowledge about Indexed Universal Life, because I'll school your ass. So this guy, like he commented, and I said, all right, listen, I'll give you a shot, because I just liked him. He was just a cool dude. So I respected him. So I said, listen, and he sent me this podcast he did with a guy that's been in the business 60 years who was talking good about IULs. And I listened to the whole thing, and I really couldn't find anything against it and bad about it. Okay. And then I said to him, I said, listen, Dustin, send me 2 IUL illustrations, spend some time designing them, make them the best IUL policies for the infinite banking concept. Because remember, folks, like we are specialists. We're like heart surgeons. All we do is the infinite banking concept. We teach a process which then is fueled by a machine called specially designed whole life. So that's all we talk about. So anything outside of that specialty that we have, like, listen, I'm not trying to be an expert. Okay. I definitely am an expert on the markets and everything, but that's because 20 plus years does that. So he sent them over to me, and I opened them up. And I knew exactly where to go and look. I looked at his hypothetical, and like he did a blended index thing. And then I looked at the guaranteed, and I said, right here, the guaranteed ends. And he said, yeah, but the guaranteed isn't likely to happen. But I said, but it ends. There's not a single whole life in the world that the guaranteed column just ends because of cost of insurance overarching the policy's premiums. Like, it can't happen in a whole life. So that was the first thing. The second thing was the surrender charge. And I say this all the time. Like, it showed me putting 12,000, because he did it on me, putting 12,000 into the Indexed Universal Life. And then my accumulation value was 10,000. Now, Stephen, that's not bad, right? I put 12 in, I got 10,000 in accumulation value. But you see, that's not the important piece. How much money did I have to use? Stephen, how much money did I have to use in the first year in that IUL policy? It was built for IBC, for that matter. How much do you think I had to use out of the 12,000 I put in?
I have no idea.
$2,800.
Yeah.
I put in 12. I have $2,800. Now, please, for anyone that ever tells me IUL is better for the infinite banking concept, like, literally those are fighting words. Like, he ran that. And I called him. I couldn't even handle it. I just called him, or he called me, actually. I gave him my number, and we talked it through. And he says, no, listen, I completely agree with you. IULs are not better than whole life for the infinite banking concepts, but IULs can work really well for supplemental retirement, like in the future. I said, listen, I'm not arguing that. I said, I'm just saying IULs don't work for the infinite banking concept. Never have, never will. And there's a lot of people out there that want to argue that point. That is my main point. So anybody that loves IULs, that says IULs are better than specially designed whole life or any whole life for that matter, for the infinite banking concept, we literally can debate. I will go deep into the debate. But the only debate I did on my YouTube video recently is the great debate, which was me debating ChatGPT. There was a guy on one of our IBC Facebook groups, and he was literally on there, and I kind of put him in his place last night. I felt bad, but I had to, because it just had to stop. Like, he was literally going on there, and like, he'd go to ChatGPT, ask it a question, and post it in the group and say, well, what about this blah, blah, blah. And I said, listen, dude, I said, if you think ChatGPT understands IBC, infinite banking concept, better than us, then like, let's go. And it was so wrong. So I did a video, an entire video where I sat there live on recording, and I asked ChatGPT specific IBC questions. And ChatGPT got a bunch of stuff right, but it got a ton of stuff wrong. The important stuff it completely missed and got wrong. I won the debate. It was kind of like Trump and Biden. Like there was no contention. Like, I won the debate. So if you are trying to learn about the infinite banking concept, may I give you a suggestion? Do not learn from ChatGPT, from Cybernet. If you want to learn from people using it in their own lives to change their own life, and teaching other people how to change their lives by adding this concept to it. That's it. Here we go, Nick. I worked in insurance and I ran a comparable IUL, and the whole life guaranteed outperformed the IUL by 100,000 in 10 years. Nick, that's always the case. It's always going to be the case. The rising cost of insurance. I mean, really, from a what's the word? An actuarial table standpoint, IULs and whole life can be the same, but it's the way that the cost of insurance are calculated. IULs are cheaper in the early years because it's a rising cost of insurance. Whole life is more expensive from a cost of insurance in the early years because it's a completely level, fixed cost of insurance. So a lot of people are like, well, yeah, but then IUL should work better. Wrong, because in the policies we design with whole life, we add a term rider, which basically is only used to support the MEC limits, and we put the lowest base on. So we're still crushing every IUL. There's not an IUL out there. I'll put this on record, and I'll pay $1,000 that anyone that can prove me wrong. $1,000 on the table. If you can show me an IUL that will work better for the infinite banking concept, better than a specially designed whole life that we design, I will give you $1,000. But you know why I can say that? I could stamp it. I could literally have an attorney. I could sign it, notarize it. You can't provide me an illustration that will work better for the infinite banking concept using an IUL. You can't do it because it's impossible. Nick just said that. All right, Stephen, we're at time. So what should we wrap this thing with? Sorry, we missed all your questions.
I missed the credit card video. I'll play that one real fast just to kind of
this one's great.
Yeah, so this was back in the 80s, a commercial that was put out. Oh, how do I get the volume? Oh, there it is.
For credit.
I think it's pretty bad.
Here, I'll reset it.
This is pretty good.
What? The home of the Whopper is offering cash or credit.
I think it's pretty bad if you have to use a credit card when you go to a fast food restaurant for something as little as $3.10.
If I use my GM card, I get a 5% rebate. If I eat here long enough, I'll be able to buy a pickup truck.
Burger King bosses say workers won't have to figure out how much change the customer gets back.
I just hope it doesn't slow things down at the cash and carry, that people are going to be having to call New York and get the confirmation or, whatever it is. Because when I want a Whopper, I want it now.
Just another way to spend money. I'm sure it'll work for people on vacation when they don't have to do something, but I can't imagine it working on a day-to-day basis here.
So far, the smallest credit has been for $2.50. The largest, just over 10. Jamie Costello, News Channel 2.
Oh, Stephen, what do you want to say to that? What year was that made?
1993.
1993. Oh, man. Credit cards. There's no way these are going to work. There's no way people are going to continue to use these. It's just silly to think that, right? How about computers? There's no way computers are going to take over the way we do things. Typewriters will always rule. How willing are you to accept change, folks? How willing are you to pivot during those changes? I don't know. For all of you that are sitting there, creating doomsday scenarios because we're going to go to a digital currency or a digital exchange of goods and services, I got news for you. We're already doing it. So how are you willing to pivot? That's on you. Thanks for joining us today, folks. You can also join us today at 1 p.m. Eastern by coming to the Wealth webinar. There's zero cost to that, just your time. And all you do is you go to chrisnaugle.com and register for the Wealth webinar, and we will give you all three of my books, The Private Money Guide, Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, and Drifting Away from Traditional Car Buying. You get them all for free, no strings attached. Register. We'll see you at 1 p.m. Eastern, and again at 4:30 this afternoon for Ask Me Anything's Happy Hour. Until then, thank you all for your great questions, your great comments, and some stupid comments, but hey, we love those too. We will see you on the next one. Thanks.